Now imagine this. You just lost your grandmother, so you decide to spend some quality time with your family to help them through this very difficult loss. As you sit there, you notice your grandfather, and you're looking at him. You notice that he's older than you remember. He's starting to look frail. He's starting to look sickly. You start to wonder how much time he has left on this earth and how much time you have left to spend with him. But instead of cherishing the time you have left, you decide that you're going to take it into your own hands so that your grandfather can be with your deceased grandmother. And you decide to do it in the most vile and evil way: murder. This is the true story of Kolby Allen Parker, the family butcher. Just to give you guys a little bit of content warnings before we jump into this video, I am going to be talking about very graphic descriptions of crime scenes and injuries to the human body and violence and police and resisting arrest. If any of those topics you are sensitive to, please click out of the video now. I totally understand that this type of content isn't for everybody. I am making this video with absolutely no disrespect to anyone involved, and I'm making this video for educational purposes to tell you guys about it. So if you don't want to stick around, I understand, and I will see you very soon in another video. But if you do plan to stick around, thank you, and let's get started. Kolby Allen Parker was born on December 3rd, 1990, making him 34 years old today. Kolby Parker resided in DeLand, Florida with his father, Ronald Wells Jr., and his grandfather, Ronald Wells Sr., who is 77 years old. And on the evening of March 13th, 2021, 911 received a very strange phone call.
Talking, and all of a sudden he just grabbed a hold of the knife, had to defend myself, and now he's sitting here dead. How long ago did this happen? Just happened. I can't even talk right now. I don't know. I just need y'all here. I need y'all here now. I understand, but I would like to keep you on the phone until we can get law enforcement out there with you, okay? Call it disconnected.
Now, the person who made this 911 call was in fact Kolby Allen Parker, but allegedly when he did call 911, he identified himself as Ronald Wells Jr. He identified himself as his father, which is not true. It was actually Kolby who made the 911 call. As to why he identified himself as his father and not who he really was very confusing to me. And when officers arrived on the scene on the night of March 13th, 2021, around 6:45 p.m., they observed Kolby Parker standing on the front porch, and when they got up to him and when they looked down, they saw the unfortunate sight of 77-year-old Ronald Wells Sr., the grandfather. They saw him lying there lifeless. And when the officer got a closer look at the body, they observed a body that was almost unrecognizable, they said. They saw stab wounds. His right arm was almost completely degloved, almost like it had been skinned. Which, by the way, a little bit of a side note, which we'll come back to later, is Kolby Parker claimed that that arm injury was from his dog biting him. And when the police officer asked him again what happened, Kolby said that they were sitting at the kitchen table together, or the dining room table together, smoking a bowl of the devil's lettuce, just sitting there talking, and all of a sudden his grandfather grabbed a nearby knife and came up to attack him, and Kolby claimed that he had to defend himself. So Kolby is claiming that this whole scene that the police officers are now looking at is all done in self-defense. Now, the injuries that led to Ronald Wells Sr.'s unfortunate passing were way past self-defense. 4 to 5 stab wounds to the neck and the chest, a smashed in head, that is not self-defense, okay? That is full-on cold-blooded murder, and that is seriously so personal. That's not self-defense, okay, guys? Like, it's just not. That's brutal. Now, while the responding officer and Kolby Parker waited for other units to arrive and for a unit to come and transport the deceased body of Ronald Wells Sr., the officer asked Kolby Parker to come wait outside near the patrol vehicle. And this is when Kolby Parker's behavior started to change a little bit. He started to act a little bit weird. He asked the responding officer if it would be okay for him to go inside and take a shower. Mind you, his grandfather is laying there dead, and he's worried about going inside and taking a shower, which obviously the officer said no, because this is a full-blown crime scene and Kolby Parker's covered in blood. And then the police officers started asking Kolby where Ronald Wells Jr. was, which is his father, because if you guys remember, when the initial 911 call was made, Kolby identified himself as Ronald Wells Jr., not Kolby. So they're wondering, well, where the heck is Ronald Wells Jr.? Like, he's the one who called this in, where is he at? But Ronald Wells Jr. was not in the nearby area at all. The only two people that were at this crime scene when it took place was Kolby and the grandfather, Ronald Wells Sr. Now, when more officers arrive at the scene, they again ask Kolby what happened, and he told the exact same story that we've heard 2 times before. And when he was telling the story to the other officers, his voice became very shaky, like he was about to cry, and it sounded very remorseful. And then it literally instantly switches, like his behavior switches within a matter of seconds. Kolby becomes very agitated, very anxious. He starts pacing around the area, beating on his chest like a gorilla, cussing under his breath, just very, very upset and very strange, concerning behavior. And again, just a quick little like side story. The local police already knew of this family, like they knew who Kolby Parker was, they knew who Ronald Wells Jr. and Sr. was, because they did have to run calls there on a regular basis due to like family arguments and disagreements. Like they were there relatively recently before this happened, so the police were well aware of who these people were. It's not super relevant to this case, but I thought I would just mention it, that this family does have a history with the police, basically. Now, after police officers advise Kolby to calm down, they go on to ask him if he has any weapons, to which Kolby responds, yes. So a pat down of him was performed. And while they were doing this pat down, they did feel something in his pockets. However, it didn't necessarily feel like a life-threatening object, like it didn't really feel like a weapon. So they did not remove the items that were in his left and right pockets. They just left them in there and didn't take them out yet. And then after they sit him back down, after they do the pat down, they begin asking Kolby where his father is. They really want to figure out where the heck his dad is, because again, they still think that he's around the area somewhere, because they still believe that he's the one who made the 911 call. So they're asking Kolby over and over and over again, where is Ronald Wells Jr.? Where is your dad? You know, where is he? Blah, blah, blah. And after a couple moments of silence, Kolby finally looks at police officers and goes, Ronnie's right here. And as he says that, Kolby removes those 2 objects that were in his pockets. And the police officers reply, okay, what is that? And in Kolby Parker's hands, I kid you not, he was holding a pair of human ears. Ears! 1 in each hand, fully cut off human ears. He says to police officers, while he's holding these, this is where he is. So now the police officers are like, holy crap. Not only do we have a deceased grandfather, but now we have what are supposedly the ears that belong to this kid's father. Like, what is going on here? So after police officers take the ears from Kolby, that's not a sentence you say every day, for evidence, they start asking him more questions, like, well, where is he? What happened? Like, what is going on here? Kolby is just straight up just not responding anymore. He's not responding to any of their questions. He's literally just sitting there, just kind of staring off into the abyss, not really saying anything, not really doing anything, just sitting there exhibiting just very strange behavior. However, Kolby Parker, he did have a question of his own for one of the officers. He asked one of the officers, and in like the most calm, nonchalant way says, oh, hey, can I see your gun, bro? To which the officer obviously replied, no. And then after a long period of silence, Kolby Parker gets up and lunges towards the police officer, trying to reach for his taser and his gun, which are attached to the police officer. And he starts attacking the police officer. Now, it took several officers, like I would say at least 3, 4, maybe even 5 officers to gain control of Kolby and this absolute rampage that he was going on by attacking this other officer. And he really did almost get to the officer's gun and taser, which thankfully he didn't. But if he did, could you imagine like what could have possibly happened? And while they were also trying to get control of Kolby, they did actually try to use a taser on Kolby to gain control of him, but the taser was completely ineffective. It did not work on him at all. Now, after a few minutes, they finally did get him handcuffed, but even while they were handcuffing him, he was still resisting and still fighting officers by flailing around, screaming, kicking his legs. And later on, police came out to say that he was exhibiting some sort of unhuman-like strength. They had just such a hard time getting control of him. It was one guy against all these police officers. It shouldn't have been that hard, right? But for them, it was incredibly difficult. Now, was it drugs possibly in his system that was giving him all this strength? Was it a mental thing? Some sort of a excited delirium or something? Now, once they got Kolby Parker officially arrested and inside the police car, they did get a search warrant to go inside and check the rest of the house because during all this time they still think that Ronald Wells Jr. is somewhere in the area or maybe even in the house with missing ears, or worse, because Kolby Parker told them that the ears he was holding in his hand belonged to his father, Ronald Wells Jr. So police were very anxious to get inside of this house to try to figure out where the heck Ronald Wells Jr. was. However, when they looked at Ronald Wells Sr., the grandfather, when they looked at his body again once they got into the house, they discovered that Ronald Wells Sr. did not have ears. So those ears that Kolby Parker had in his pockets and that he was holding in his hands were in fact his grandfather's ears, not his father's. As to why Kolby said that they were his father's ears, I don't know. They were his grandfather's ears. That's so terrible. And once they got further into the house, they did come across the blood-stained knife, and they also found a baseball bat with blood on it. And then once they got to Kolby Parker's bedroom, they saw something that was a little disturbing. On Kolby Parker's bedroom, there was a white apron hanging on the wall, and on this apron were the words, "The Family Butcher," and it was covered in fake blood and fake body parts. It almost looked like a Halloween decoration a little bit, but nonetheless, after hearing about what actually happened and then seeing that apron, it's very, very disturbing. And then as officers were finishing the search of the house, again, they did not find Ronald Wells Jr. anywhere, the father, and thankfully, as it turns out, Ronald Wells Jr. was out of town when all of this took place, and he had no prior knowledge that this was even happening, so he did not make the 911 call. He thankfully did not get his ears cut off, so he was just completely out of town. So that is a good thing. Thank God, right? Now, after Kolby and the police officers were released from the hospital for very minor injuries, he was then transported to the Lake County Jail where he was held with no bond, just due to the overall strangeness of this case and all of the unusual behavior that Kolby was exhibiting. Kolby Parker then did give a statement to police saying that there was actually no altercation. He did grab the baseball bat first, hitting his grandfather, Ronald Wells Sr., 3 times. Twice in the face and once in the back of the head. And then he grabbed the knife and stabbed him 4 to 5 times in the chest and neck. And then he cut off his ears. Now, if you guys remember the degloved right arm, this really severe arm injury on his grandfather, Kolby Parker is still claiming that the dog did that and it was from the dog biting him. But those were definitely not dog bites. His arm literally looked like as if you were to skin a fish. I know that sounds graphic, I know, but it's true. If you've ever been bitten by a large dog before, there would be very random, deep puncture wounds, not a full-on degloving. And I saw the crime scene photos, okay? Those were not dog bites. Now, another little side story about the dog. There was a dog at the crime scene, so the dog wasn't like a made-up thing in Kolby's head. He did have a large, I believe it was like a pit bull type dog at the residence there. And I did do more more research into the dog, and I did look it up. The dog had no evidence of blood on him at all, indicating that he was involved in that arm injury. And the dog was not killed by police upon entry. They did call the ASPCA, and the dog was taken safely and alive out of the residence. So I'm a huge dog lover, so I was very, very focused on making sure that the dog came out okay, and he did. And I do not believe that the dog was involved in this crime at all. I really don't. I'm sorry. It's just not believable. Now, Kolby Parker's grandmother did pass away about 3 to 4 days before this whole incident took place. And Kolby Parker said that he wanted his grandpa to go be with his grandma and that he wanted to help him on his way and that it was just time for him to go. During the statement, Kolby Parker said he was growing old and frail, and that's what happens. Kolby Allen Parker pled no contest to second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. He was also charged with battery of a law enforcement officer, and he was also charged with resisting with violence. And the body of Ronald Wells Sr. was soon picked up after the incident and was brought to the 5th District Medical Examiner's office where an autopsy was performed. Ronald Wells Sr. was born on February 4th, 1944, and tragically passed away on March 13th, 2021, at the age of 77 years old. He was a Vietnam veteran war hero who fought for his country, and he received a Purple Heart and numerous other medals for all of his service and bravery. And it was also said that Ronald Wells Sr. devoted his life lovingly and selflessly to his family and to his longtime wife, who passed away just days before he did. This is the story of the untimely death of Ronald Wells Sr. and the man who committed the crime. Kolby Allen Parker, his own grandson. Now, the reason I picked this case is because when I heard about it and started looking more into it, I could not believe, I was in so much shock and disbelief that something like this could even happen. Cutting off somebody's ears and cutting off your own grandfather's ears and attacking him so brutally, and it's just so evil and vile, and I just had to talk about it because that's just why, it's crazy. And I truly and honestly do feel for everyone in the family who had to go through this. Absolutely none of this should have happened. And I still just don't understand why it happened. It's just so sad. Kolby said his reasoning is because, well, his grandfather was getting old, so he wanted to help him on his way. And it's that's not your job though. It's just so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. And I just want the rest of the family to find peace, and I hope that Ronald Wells Sr. is resting in peace. So what do you guys think of this case? Have you ever heard of this before? If you have heard of it, did you think it was just as shocking as I did? It's just crazy. So this is just one of those that I really wanted to cover. I know I was gonna stick with more Michigan cases, and this is a Florida case, and I had to put it out there and just make you guys aware of it, because it's just so crazy. I really hope that you guys enjoyed, even though I feel like that's a wrong thing to say. But if you guys did enjoy this video and you want to see more true crime here on my channel, make sure you go down, give a thumbs up, subscribe, turn on all notifications, do all the YouTube stuff, just so I know that you want to see more of these types of videos. Again, please do not show any disrespect or hate to anyone that I mentioned in this video. This family has been through enough already, I would say, so let's just keep it respectful and just let me know what you thought of this case. I love you guys very much. Thank you so much for watching. Please be aware of your surroundings when you go out there. If you see something, say something. If you see a family member or somebody exhibiting strange behavior, say something so we can avoid something like this happening again. And I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye. Mwah.